Welcome, dear listeners, to Poisoned Choir Girl of Ashvale Cathedral, a Miss Marple story of murder. This cozy mystery, inspired by the timeless tales of Agatha Christie, invites you to the quaint village of St. Mary Mead in the 1950s. Join the sharp-witted Miss Jane Marple as she unravels a puzzling poisoning amid the harmonious halls of Ashvale Cathedral. Settle in with a cup of tea and let the intrigue unfold. Our story is divided into 10 chapters for your convenience. Total runtime, approximately 90 minutes. Chapter 1. The Echo of a Fallen Note. In the heart of England, where the rolling hills of Kent cradled secrets as old as the chalk streams that wound between them, lay the timeless village of St. Mary Mead. It was the 1950s, a decade when the scars of war had begun to fade like ink on weathered paper and life resumed its gentle, unhurried pace. The thatched cottages, with their roses climbing trellises and hollyhocks nodding in the breeze, huddled together like old friends gossiping over the garden fence. Smoke curled lazily from chimneys, carrying the scent of baking bread and wood smoke, while the high street bustled with the familiar faces of those who had known one another since cradle and christening. At the very center of this idyllic tapestry stood Ashvale Cathedral, a magnificent edifice of weathered limestone that had weathered storms both literal and metaphorical for nigh on 6 centuries. Its spires, slender as quill pens dipped in the morning mist, pierced the soft September sky, and its arched windows glowed with the jewel tones of stained glass, ruby reds and sapphire blues depicting saints and seraphim in eternal vigil. The cathedral was more than a place of worship. It was the village's beating heart, where births were celebrated, marriages sealed, and farewells whispered. On Sundays, its nave filled with the voices of the choir, rising like incense to heaven, binding the community in harmonious threads. It was on just such a crisp autumn Sunday, the 18th of September 1953, that the harmony was rent asunder by a note that would never fade. A note of tragedy, sharp and irrevocable. The morning broke with a golden haze, the sort that painted the dew-kissed meadows in hues of amber and rose. Miss Jane Marple, that esteemed spinster of St. Mary Mead, made her way to the cathedral with the punctuality of the village clock. At 72 years of age, she was a figure as familiar as the cathedral itself. Slight and bird-like, with a mop of soft white hair pinned neatly beneath a lace-trimmed hat, and eyes the color of faded bluebells. Eyes that missed nothing, though her demeanor suggested only placid contentment. She carried her prayer book in one hand and a skein of wool in the other, for even divine service could not deter her from her knitting. One must keep one's hands busy, she often said, lest the mind wander into mischief. Miss Marple's usual pew was the 4th from the front on the left, tucked just so, beneath a window depicting St. Cecilia, patroness of music. It afforded her an unobstructed view of the choir loft, high above the transept, where the singers assembled like a flock of well-feathered birds. She settled into the polished oak seat with a soft sigh, arranging her skirts and setting her needles clicking in a steady rhythm. Around her the congregation gathered. Farmers in corduroy jackets, the postmistress with her perpetual smile, the baker whose loaves were the envy of the county, and the gentry from the big house on the hill. Whispers fluttered like moths about the harvest fair, old Mrs. Hargrove's rheumatism, and young Emily's upcoming solo at the autumn recital. Ah, Emily Hargrove. She was the golden girl of St. Mary Mead, scarcely 20 summers old, with curls the color of ripening wheat cascading down her back and a voice that could coax tears from the sternest heart. Daughter of the late wheelwright, she had been taken in by her aunt after the war claimed her parents in a bombing raid over London. Emily had blossomed in the cathedral choir, her soprano soaring clear and true, a lark's song amid the robin's trill of the altos and tenors. The villagers doted on her. She was their emblem of hope, a reminder that from ashes beauty could rise. Yet Miss Marple, ever attuned to the undercurrents of human nature, had noted a shadow behind Emily's smile these past weeks, a fleeting tightness about the eyes, a hesitation in her step. "Young girls," Miss Marple murmured to herself as her needles flashed, "carry burdens heavier than they show." The organ swelled, its pipes breathing life into the ancient stones, and Reverend Thomas Price ascended the pulpit. He was a man in his late 50s, broad-shouldered and benevolent, with a mane of silver hair and a voice like rumbling thunder softened by kindness. His wife, Eleanor, sat primly in the front pew, her lips pursed as always in mild disapproval of the world's frivolities. "Dearly beloved," the vicar began, "we gather in the grace of this fine morning to give thanks." But it was the choir that truly awakened the cathedral. Led by Mr. Reginald Thorne, the choirmaster, a stern figure of 50 with a mustache trimmed to military precision, they processed from the vestry, robes flowing like water. There was Miss Lydia Beaumont, the sharp-featured soprano whose own voice, though fine, paled beside Emily's brilliance. Mr. Harold Finch, the bespectacled organist whose fingers danced over keys with shy devotion. And the others, a dozen strong, faces flushed with anticipation. At their center, radiant as a candle flame, was Emily. She carried a small silver cup, her personal vessel, etched with her initials E.H., a gift from the choir on her 18th birthday, for the traditional sip of cordial before the hymns. It was a ritual as old as the cathedral itself, meant to clear the throat and steady the nerves. The service proceeded with its comforting familiarity. The readings from Proverbs, the collects murmured in unison, the rustle of hymnals as the congregation rose. Miss Marple's eyes, half closed in apparent repose, roved the assembly. She noted how Lydia's gaze lingered on Emily with a glint that was not entirely sisterly, how Harold's shoulders tensed when Emily smiled his way, how Mr. Thorne's baton tapped a shade more sharply than usual. And in the back pew, half hidden by a pillar, sat Mr. Arthur Langley, the prosperous merchant from the high street, his face flushed as if from more than the morning chill. People, Miss Marple thought, her knitting pausing mid-stitch, are much the same in cathedral or cottage. Jealousies brew like tea left too long on the hob. Then came the moment all awaited, the anthem, "Abide with Me." The choir's voices rose in angelic unison, weaving a tapestry of sound that filled every nook and cranny of the sacred space. Emily's soprano led, pure and piercing, climbing to heights that seemed to brush the vaulted ceiling. "Abide with me. Fast falls the eventide." The congregation swayed, eyes closed in reverence. Miss Marple allowed herself a small smile. It was perfection. And then, as the final verse swelled, "Help of the helpless, oh, abide with me," disaster struck. It began with a gasp, sharp as a snapped thread. Emily's voice faltered, cracking on the high note like porcelain under strain. Her hand flew to her throat, the silver cup tumbling from her fingers to clatter on the wooden floor of the loft. Her golden curls seemed to dim as color drained from her cheeks, leaving them the hue of cold porridge. She staggered, eyes wide with bewilderment, and collapsed in a heap amid the scattered sheets of music. A collective intake of breath rippled through the nave, followed by a murmur that grew to a horrified wave. "Emily! Oh, merciful heavens!" cried an alto from the back row, her voice breaking into sobs. The choir dissolved into chaos. Mr. Thorne dropped his baton, leaping to her side with uncharacteristic agility. "Stand back! Give her air!" he barked, his stern facade crumbling. Harold Finch ceased playing abruptly, the organ's echo dying like a sigh, and scrambled up the spiral stairs, his spectacles askew. Lydia Beaumont stood frozen, her hands clasped white-knuckled at her breast, a strange mix of shock and something unreadable flickering in her eyes. Reverend Price, ever the shepherd, descended from the pulpit and pushed through the pews. "Doctor! Fetch Dr. Haydock at once," he called. The verger, old Mr. Pettigrew, hobbled forward with smelling salts, but it was plain to all that no salts would suffice. Emily's lips had turned a ghastly blue, foam flecking their edges, and a faint, bitter scent, almonds unmistakable to those who knew, wafted from the fallen cup. Miss Marple did not rise. She sat still as stone, her knitting laid aside, eyes sharp behind her spectacles. She observed the unfolding scene with the detachment of one who has seen life's patterns too many times to be surprised. The doctor arrived in a flurry of bicycle tires and black bag, kneeling beside the girl. His examination was swift, his face grim as he straightened. "I'm afraid it's too late," he announced to the hushed congregation. "Poison, cyanide by the smell of it, ingested not 5 minutes ago." A gasp like wind through the oaks swept the cathedral. Women wept openly. Men shifted uncomfortably, murmuring prayers. "Poison? In our own church?" whispered the postmistress to her neighbor. "Who would do such a thing to sweet Emily?" Reverend Price climbed to the choir loft, his voice steadying the flock. "Let us pray for her soul, and for justice." But justice, Miss Marple knew, would not come from prayers alone. As the congregation filed out into the churchyard, buzzing like disturbed bees, she lingered, adjusting her hat with deliberate calm. She noted the silver cup being carefully wrapped by the verger, the way Lydia dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief that remained suspiciously dry, Harold's trembling hands as he gathered sheet music, Thorne's clipped orders to clear the loft, and Arthur Langley slipping away through a side door without a word. The village constable, young Tom Mellors, a bumbling lad more suited to directing traffic than detecting crime, arrived with notebook in hand. "Nasty business, Miss Marple," he said, touching his helmet. "Any ideas?" She smiled faintly, retrieving her knitting. "Ideas? Oh, I wouldn't presume, Constable. But poison. Such a quiet weapon, don't you think? It speaks of someone who knows the victim intimately, someone who watched her sip from that very cup." As the cathedral emptied, the autumn sun slanting through the windows in shafts of colored light, Miss Marple stepped into the churchyard. The gravestones stood sentinel, mossy and silent, while blackbirds hopped among the yew trees. The air was thick with shock, but beneath it hummed the first whispers of suspicion. Who among them in this close-knit haven harbored a heart dark enough to fell a choir girl with a poisoned draught? Miss Marple paused by the lich gate, her needles clicking once more. "People are much the same everywhere," she murmured to the breeze. "And in St. Mary Mead, secrets are like stitches. Dropped ones unravel everything." Chapter 2. Whispers in the Vestry. The tolling bells of Ashvale Cathedral had barely ceased their mournful echo when the village of St. Mary Mead began to stir from its Sunday stupor. Monday, the 19th of September, 1953, dawned with a fine mist veiling the hills like a widow's lace, muting the colors of the world to soft grays and muted greens. The high street, usually alive with the clip-clop of the milkman's horse and the chatter of housewives at the greengrocer's, moved at half speed. Conversations halted mid-sentence at the sight of black crepe fluttering from the Hargrove cottage door, and even the blackbirds seemed to hop more solemnly among the hedgerows. Emily's passing was not merely a death. It was a fracture in the village's fragile peace, a reminder that beneath the thatched roofs and tea-time pleasantries, darker currents could run. By mid-morning, the mist had burned away, leaving a crisp clarity that mirrored the mood in the cathedral vestry. This small, paneled room, tucked behind the chancel like a confidential whisper, served as the choir's sanctum. Its walls, lined with oak shelves groaning under leather-bound hymnals and stacks of yellowed sheet music, exhaled the mingled scents of incense, beeswax polish, and the faint musty tang of antiquity. A long refectory table dominated the center, scarred from generations of teacups and elbows, while a mullioned window overlooked the cloister garth, where monks once tended herb gardens long overgrown with nettles and wild roses. Today a fire crackled in the grate, casting flickering shadows that danced like uneasy spirits across the faces gathered there. Miss Jane Marple arrived precisely at 11, her sensible brogues tapping softly on the flagstones as she entered through the cloister door. She carried a basket containing her knitting, a small jar of homemade damson jam, and a tin of digestive biscuits, provisions for what she anticipated would be a trying morning. Her lace-trimmed hat was pinned at a jaunty angle, and her blue eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the room with the quiet assessment of one appraising a particularly intricate doily. Reverend Thomas Price rose immediately from his seat at the table's head, his broad face creased with gratitude and grief. "Ah, Miss Marple, you are a godsend," he boomed, his voice a touch hoarse from yesterday's consolations. He clasped her frail hand in both of his, warm and calloused from years of gripping the pulpit. The constable's in over his head, poor lad, and with the inquest looming. Well, your insight into these matters is legendary. Please do sit. Tea? Miss Marple settled into a Windsor chair, her basket at her feet, and accepted a cup from Mrs. Price with a nod. Thank you, Vicar. And yes, tea is always the first step toward clarity. Strong, with a dash of milk. No sugar, if you please. As the amber liquid steamed before her, she observed the room's occupants, 4 souls bound by choir robes and now by suspicion's silken thread. The air hummed with unspoken questions, thick as the fog that had lifted outside. Reverend Price cleared his throat, gesturing to each in turn. Allow me to introduce, or reintroduce as the case may be, the heart of our choir. First, Mr. Reginald Thorne, our esteemed choirmaster these past 15 years. Mr. Thorne stood rigidly by the mantel, a figure cut from stern oak. At 52, he was the epitome of Edwardian propriety. Tall and lean, with a waistcoat buttoned to the throat, trousers creased like a ruler's edge, and a mustache so precisely trimmed it might have been etched with a penknife. His eyes, pale gray beneath heavy brows, held the flinty glint of a man accustomed to command. He inclined his head stiffly. Miss Marple, a tragic loss. Emily was promising. Miss Marple smiled, her gentle smile, sipping her tea. Promising indeed, Mr. Thorne. I heard her notes yesterday, pure as a mountain stream. You must have been proud to guide such talent. Thorne's mustache twitched, the only betrayal of inner turmoil. He paced to the window, hands clasped behind his back. Proud? Yes, but talent untempered by discipline is a wild thing. Emily was headstrong, you see, insisted on improvising during rehearsals, altering my arrangements willy-nilly. Last Wednesday we had words over her solo for the autumn recital, The Lark Ascending. She deemed it stuffy and wanted to insert some modern flourish from the wireless. I told her quite firmly that the choir is an ensemble, not a stage for solo flights of fancy. His voice clipped sharper with each word, revealing the fracture beneath his composure. She stormed out, slamming the vestry door. I regretted it, of course, but rules are rules. Miss Marple's needles began their rhythmic click-click, soft as a metronome. She noted how Thorne's fingers drummed against his thigh, a habit of suppressed frustration, she'd wager. Dear me. Young people do chafe at rains, don't they? Much like colts in the meadow. And yet her voice led us all so beautifully yesterday morning. One wonders if that argument lingered in anyone's mind. Before Thorne could reply, the vicar steered onward. Next, Miss Lydia Beaumont, our leading soprano, or was until Emily's arrival. Lydia, perched on the edge of a chair like a bird ready for flight, was 28 and sharp as a briar rose. Her dark hair was drawn into a severe chignon, accentuating high cheekbones and eyes green as envy itself. She wore a dove-gray dress, modest yet tailored to hint at the figure beneath, and her hands, long-fingered like a pianist's, twisted a lace handkerchief into knots. At the introduction, she rose with a rustle, her voice a cultured contralto laced with bitterness. "Miss Marple, your reputation precedes you. What a comfort in these dreadful times." "Comfort is what we all need, my dear," Miss Marple replied mildly, her gaze lingering on the handkerchief. Not a tear in sight, though the fabric was damp, nerves perhaps, or something more calculated. "You've sung here many years, I believe. Emily must have been a breath of fresh air to your harmonies." Lydia's lips thinned to a hyphen. She resumed her seat, leaning forward with the fervor of one sharing village scandal over the garden wall. "Fresh air? More like a gale uprooting the roses. I've given 10 years to this choir. Lessons paid from my own pocket after father lost everything in 29. My Jerusalem solo at last Easter was the talk of the county. Then Emily waltzes in from nowhere with her golden curls and war orphan story, and poof, I'm relegated to second voice. Mr. Thorne gave her my parts, my spotlight. Yesterday, during a bide with me, stood there like a fool, mouth open while she soared. Stole it all, she did. Her voice cracked, not with grief, but a venomous edge that hung in the air like smoke. I told her once in the cloister garden, "Talent fades, Lydia dear, but hard work endures." She laughed, actually laughed. Miss Marple tilted her head, her needles pausing mid-stitch. Laughed? How unkind. Jealousy is a thorny weed, isn't it? Chokes the garden if not weeded out. But tell me, did you prepare the cordial yesterday? That silver cup of hers. Lydia's eyes widened fractionally. Goodness, no. Harold does the teas. I was tuning my pitch pipe in the corner. She dabbed her dry eyes again, the gesture practiced as a stage cue. The vicar, sensing the room's temperature rise, pressed on. And here Mr. Harold Finch, our organist and all-around musical wizard. Harold Finch unfolded himself from a shadowed corner where he'd been tinkering with a small pitch pipe. At 41, he was a rumpled contrast to Thorne's precision. Short and stoop-shouldered, with a thatch of sandy hair perpetually askew and spectacles magnified his mild brown eyes to owl-like proportions. His tweed jacket bore chalk dust from the schoolhouse, music master by day, and his fingers, ink-stained, trembled slightly as he shook Miss Marple's hand. Pleased to meet you properly, ma'am. Awful business. Emily, she was special." Miss Marple's gaze softened, taking in his blush and averted eyes. "Special indeed, Mr. Finch. Your organ work yesterday was sublime, cradled her voice like a mother hen. You must have been close." Harold fiddled with his spectacles, perching them higher on his nose. He sank back into his chair, voice a bashful murmur. "Close? Well, I admired her, greatly. Took her to the pictures once in Market Basing, the new Ealing comedy, laughed all the way through. Afterward at the tea shop, I told her how her voice moved me like Handel's Messiah come to life. She smiled that smile of hers, all dimples, and said, 'Harold, you're too sweet, but I'm not ready for settling down. Boys my age are more fun. Dancing, you know.' He chuckled weakly, but his eyes glistened. 'Old-fashioned,' she called me. Laughed it off. I didn't mind. Much." Miss Marple nodded sympathetically, her knitting resuming. "Ah, unrequited affections, the bitterest brew. Like a suitor in a Jane Austen novel pining from the parsonage. Did she return your letters, then?" Harold flushed crimson. "Letters? Oh, just notes on music theory. She sent them back, unread. Said it cluttered her room." His fingers drummed the table, mirroring Thorne's tick. Curious, that shared nervousness. As the tea cooled, Mrs. Price bustled in from the kitchen with fresh scones, her tight bun unyielding as her demeanor. but the vicar held off introductions, pouring refills. "One more soul to complete our circle," he said. "Mr. Arthur Langley, Emily's friend from the High Street." The vestry door creaked open, admitting Arthur Langley in a swirl of cold air. 34, broad and bluff with a ruddy complexion from outdoor dealings and a suit of Harris tweed that strained at the shoulders, he was the village's merchant prince, drapers, hardware, and a sideline in vintage cars. His blue eyes, usually twinkling with salesman charm, were shadowed today. He hung his hat on the peg and bowed to Miss Marple. "Heard you were here, ma'am. Couldn't stay away. Emily, she deserved better." "Sit, Arthur, sit," urged the vicar. Langley took the empty chair, accepting tea with a nod. Miss Marple watched his large hands, capable yet trembling as they cradled the cup. "A fine young lady," she said softly. "I saw you in the back pew yesterday. Friends, you say?" Langley's jaw tightened. "More than that, truth be told. Courted her proper, walks by the river, ices at the fair. She confided in me, see? Troubles after the war. Rent piling up on her aunt's cottage. No steady job beyond the choir. I lent her £20 last month, no interest. Yesterday morning she slipped me a note during the offertory. Paid in full soon, Arthur, big news." Never got to ask what. His voice roughened. Who'd poison a girl with dreams like that? Miss Marple's eyes narrowed behind her spectacles. Dreams indeed, and debts. They make strange bedfellows. Did she mention enemies? The room fell silent save for the fire's pop and her needle's click. Thorne stared at his boots, Lydia shredded her handkerchief, Harold polished his glasses, Langley drained his cup. Finally, the vicar sighed. "Enemies? In St. Mary Mead? Preposterous, but the police." Miss Marple set down her tea, folding her hands. "The police will blunder about like bulls in a china shop. But I see patterns, like this. All of you touched that silver cup yesterday, polishing, filling, passing, and Emily's initials etched deep, easy to mark her alone." She paused, letting it sink in. "Human nature, dears, is a tapestry. Pull one thread, jealousy, love scorned, a loan unpaid, and the whole unravels." Lydia gasped softly. Harold's pipe slipped from his pocket. Thorne straightened. "What are you suggesting, madam?" "Nothing yet," Miss Marple replied serenely, packing her basket. "But I'll return tomorrow, with scones." As she glided out into the cloister, sunlight slanting golden through the arches, she murmured to herself, "Threads indeed, and somewhere a dropped stitch." The vestry door closed behind her, leaving whispers to brew like the tea in their cups. Chapter 3. Tea and Suspicions. The cloister shadows had scarcely lengthened when Miss Jane Marple made her way from Ashvale Cathedral's hallowed quiet to the welcoming bustle of the vicarage. It was still Monday afternoon, the 19th of September, 1953, and the village clock on the church tower struck 2:30 with a resonant bong that echoed across the rooftops. The vicarage stood just beyond the Lich Gate, a sturdy Georgian rectory of honey-colored stone, its diamond-paned windows winking in the pale sun, and its front garden a riot of late-blooming asters and chrysanthemums. Smoke plumed from the kitchen chimney, carrying the irresistible perfume of fresh scones and brewing tea, a balm against the morning's chill revelations. Miss Marple approached along the gravel path, her brogues crunching softly, basket swinging at her side. She paused to admire a climbing rose, its petals blood-red against the whitewashed wall. "Roses have thorns," she murmured, "much like truths half-hidden." A robin, plump and inquisitive, hopped from twig to twig, watching her with beady eyes. The village, though subdued, was stirring. The milk float rattled past, children skipped rope in the lane, and from the Blue Boar pub came the murmur of early patrons dissecting the tragedy over pints. But here at the vicarage, comfort reigned supreme. Mrs. Eleanor Price opened the door before Miss Marple could knock, her apron dusted with flour and her tight bun slightly askew, a rare chink in her formidable armor. At 56, she was the vicar's sturdy counterpart, tall and angular with a face like carved oak, lips perpetually pursed in judicious appraisal. Her gray dress, high-necked and starched, rustled as she ushered her guest inside. Miss Marple. Right on time as ever. Thomas is in his study, but I've the tea things ready. Come through, mind the cat, he's in a mood. The drawing room was a haven of chintz and comfort, floral wallpaper blooming with cabbage roses, a turkey carpet soft underfoot, and a low table set for two before the fireplace. Silver teapot agleam, bone china cups delicate as eggshells, a tiered stand groaning under scones, strawberry jam, and clotted cream. Miss Marple settled into a wing-back chair with a contented sigh, arranging her knitting on the ottoman. Mrs. Price, you've outdone yourself. Nothing restores the spirit like a proper tea. Eleanor poured with practiced precision, her hands steady as a surgeon's. One must keep standards up even in sorrow. Milk, and do try a scone, fresh from the oven. She sat opposite, smoothing her skirts, her gray eyes keen beneath arched brows. Yet Miss Marple noted a faint tremor in the saucer as it met the table, a ripple beneath the calm surface. Thank you, dear. Miss Marple added a dash of milk, stirring thrice counterclockwise, as was her habit. She bit into a scone, crumbs flaking like autumn leaves. Delicious. Now about young Emily, such a shock. You knew her well, being vicar's wife and all. Mrs. Price's lips tightened, though her voice remained even. Well enough. Took her under my wing after the war. Orphan girl, you know. Taught her deportment, mending the hymns, but flighty, Miss Marple, terribly flighty. Always giggling with the lads, skipping rehearsals for dances at the village hall. And that Mr. Langley, shameless, seen them strolling by the river after dark, arms linked, unseemly for a choir girl. I spoke to her sharp about it last. Weak. Emily Hargrove, you're setting a poor example. Temptation leads to ruin, mark my words. She set down her cup with a decisive clink. She tossed her curls and said, Auntie Eleanor, life's too short for frowning. Auntie, indeed, I wasn't bloodkin. Miss Marple's needles clicked softly, absorbing every nuance, the clipped consonants, the flash of disapproval in Eleanor's eyes. Dear me, youth does gallop ahead, doesn't it? Like a pony shying at shadows. And Mr. Langley, tell me more. I saw him in the vestry this morning. Before Mrs. Price could respond, the study door opened, admitting Reverend Price with a tray of lemon curd tarts. Ah, ladies, joining the fray? His joviality masked the shadows beneath his eyes. But footsteps sounded outside, heavy, purposeful, and a knock rattled the door. Come in, called the vicar. Arthur Langley entered, hat in hand, his ruddy face flushed deeper than the afternoon light. Beg pardon, Mrs. Price, saw Miss Marple's basket from the lane. Mind if I join? Can't settle to shop tallies with Emily gone. Eleanor pursed her lips but waved him to a chair. Sit then, tea's hot. As she poured, Langley mopped his brow with a large handkerchief. Ta, ma'am, rough day, customers whispering, sales slipping. Emily, she brightened the place, popping in with her smile. Miss Marple leaned forward, voice gentle as swan down. Indeed she did, Mr. Langley. You mentioned a loan this morning. Debts weighing on her? Langley accepted his cup, large hands engulfing the porcelain. His eyes darted to Mrs. Price, then away. Aye, £20, as I said. For her aunt's rent, poor soul's rheumatism keeps her abed. Emily promised repayment soon, said she had big news. Gave me this note yesterday, slipped in the offertory plate. He fished a crumpled paper from his pocket, unfolding it with care. In girlish script, "Paid in full soon, Arthur, big news. E.H., a faint smudge of violet ink, Emily's favorite." Mrs. Price snorted softly. Big news? Probably another beau, or winnings from the church raffle. Miss Marple examined the note, her spectacles glinting. Violet ink. Charming. And the paper. Blue Maiden stationery from the post office. Did she say more? Langley shook his head, voice roughening. Not specifics, but she confided troubles. Choir squabbles, folk talking behind her back. Lydia Beaumont green as grass with envy, and Mr. Thorne always barking orders. Oh, and that rehearsal tea. Harold brews it strong, but Emily's cup was hers alone, marked E.H. The vicar nodded gravely. Communal pot, yes. Tradition. Tea flowed, conversation eddying like the steam. Langley recounted walks with Emily, picnics by the weir, her laughter echoing over the water. A dance at the harvest supper where she'd waltzed like a dream. Mrs. Price interjected tartly. Emily's flirtations at the youth club, her tardy arrivals smelling of cinema smoke. Yet beneath barbs, affection flickered. Eleanor's flighty masked, maternal worry. As cups emptied, Miss Marple rose. A splendid tea, but I must wander the grounds. Fresh air clarifies the mind. Bidding farewell, she slipped into her cardigan and stepped into the churchyard, the September sun slanting golden through yew branches. Gravestones leaned like old storytellers, moss whispering of bygones. She followed the path to the choir entrance, a low-arched door, ivy-clad and ancient. There, half buried in a drift of coppery leaves by the step, glinted something metallic. Kneeling with care, her joints protesting mildly, Miss Marple brushed away debris. A small glass vial, empty, its cork nearby. She uncorked it, inhaling delicately. Almonds, bitter, unmistakable. Cyanide residue. Interesting, she mused, pocketing it in her handkerchief. Discarded so casually, yet hidden from the path. And why here, where the choir enters first? Footsteps crunched. Constable Tom Mellor's helmet underarm, notebook flapping. Afternoon, Miss Marple. Blimey rooting about. Found summit? She straightened, serene as ever. Just a trifle, Constable. Litter, I'd say. But poison leaves traces, doesn't it? Like crumbs after elevenses. Mellor scratched his head. Vial? Inspector Craddock'll want it, but reckon it's not. Kids playing, maybe. Or that ghost in the bell tower. Spooky, that. Miss Marple's eyes twinkled. Ghost? Do tell. He leaned in, voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. Old tale. Lady Ashvale, poisoned by her sister in 1642, haunts the tower. Moans on Sundays. Lydia swears she heard it last week. Before she could probe, a rustle from the cloister. Lydia Beaumont emerged, shawl clutched tight, face pale as milk. Miss Marple? Out for a constitutional? Gruesome, isn't it? Her green eyes flicked to the constable, then the leaves. Quite, Miss Marple replied mildly. And this ghost, Lady Ashvale, was it? How intriguing. Poisoned, you say? Lydia nodded eagerly, linking arms as if they were old confidants. Oh, yes. Sister jealous of her marriage, slipped arsenic in the well. I heard the moans myself, practicing scales. Eerie wail right before Emily's row with Thorne. Diverts the eye from, well, you know. She glanced skyward toward the bell tower's shadowed slits. Perhaps it's warning us? Miss Marple patted her hand. Warnings indeed. But ghosts don't tamper with teacups, dear. Though tales do distract, like jam on burnt toast. They strolled the garth, Lydia chattering, the ghost's legend in parish records, sightings by vergers, even a chill draft yesterday. Red herring, Miss Marple thought, plump and shiny. Lydia's fervor too keen, her alibi wrapped in spectral silk. Yet the vial burned in her pocket, a tangible thread. As Lydia departed for home, Miss Marple lingered by the entrance, eyes tracing the choir door's worn grooves. Footprints in the soft earth, small, feminine, fresh. Not Emily's dainty brogues, but Lydia's? Or another's? The sun dipped, shadows pooling like spilled Inca. Back at the vicarage gate, she met Langley departing, face stormy. Mrs. Price at it again, unsuitable company. Emily was a lady. Patience, Mr. Langley, Miss Marple counseled. Truth brews slowly like your aunt's best Darjeeling. Evening crept in, lanterns flickering along the lane. Miss Marple walked home, vial safe, mind weaving patterns. Suspicions swirled. Eleanor's disapproval, Langley's debts, Lydia's ghost. Clues hid in plain sight, drops of ink, almond whiffs, a discarded thread. In her cottage by lamplight, she unpacked the vial, knitting beside it. People lie for the oddest reasons, she reflected. But patterns, they never do. Chapter 4. Shadows in the Organ Loft. Tuesday morning, the 20th of September, 1953, unveiled itself in St. Mary Mead with a sky of flawless porcelain blue, the sort that promised a harvest fair unmarred by rain. Yet the village lingered in yesterday's pall, its rhythms subdued. The blacksmith's hammer struck softer. The children's laughter carried a hesitant note, and black crape still veiled doors like mourning doves. Ashvale Cathedral stood sentinel as ever, its spires gilded by the climbing sun. But within its walls, the air thrummed with an undercurrent of urgency. The inquest loomed at week's end. Constable Mellors bumbled about with his notebook, and whispers of poison spread faster than bindweed through the hedgerows. Miss Jane Marple, rising with the lark, had breakfasted on porridge and prudence before setting forth. Her basket held fresh-baked seed cake, her own recipe laced with caraway for sharpness of mind, and her resolve was as firm as the bobbin lace edging her cuffs. By 10 o'clock, she ascended the narrow spiral staircase to the organ loft, her brogues whispering against worn stone steps that spiraled like a nautilus shell. The air grew cooler, dust-moted and incense-scented as she emerged into the loft. A cramped eyrie perched high above the nave, 30 feet below. Here the cathedral's grandeur unfolded like a tapestry unrolled. The vaulted ceiling arched in ribbed splendor. Pews gleamed like polished chestnuts, and sunlight streamed through rose windows, painting the stone floor in kaleidoscopic fire. The organ dominated, a Victorian behemoth of gilded pipes rising like organ stops in a symphony hall, its manuals and pedals a labyrinth for skilled hands. Sheet music fluttered on stands, and a faint chill lingered as if the music itself mourned. Mr. Harold Finch was already at work, his stooped figure hunched over the pedals, coaxing somber strains from Bach's toccata and fugue. The notes rolled downward, rich and mournful, filling the empty cathedral like smoke from a hidden fire. He paused as Miss Marple's head appeared through the trapdoor, pushing his spectacles up his nose with an ink-stained finger. Miss Marple, didn't hear you climb. Come for the view, or questions?" She emerged fully, smoothing her skirt, and settled on a cushioned bench beside the console. "A bit of both, Mr. Finch. Your playing is a comfort, lifts the spirits like hymns on a gray day. But yes, questions. About that rehearsal tea on Saturday. Mind if we chat while you practice?" Harold wiped his hands on his tweed trousers, blushing beneath his sandy fringe. He pulled out the bench, resuming with softer chords. A gentle Jesu, joy of man's desiring. "Chat away, ma'am." Tea was routine. Communal pot in the vestry, lemon cordial to clear throats. I brewed it myself, 2 pints, strong as the vicar likes, poured into cups marked with initials, EH for Emily, LB for Lydia, and so on. Hers was silver, etched deep, gift from last Yuletide. Everyone sipped before processing in. Miss Marple unpacked her seed cake, offering a slice on a handkerchief. Delicious chords and cake, too, if you'd like. Now that silver cup, easy to single out, wasn't it? And the poison, swift in moments. Anyone tamper while you turned for sugar? Harold accepted the cake, nibbling absently, his petals dancing a slow waltz. Tea turned? Aye, for the lemon slices in the bowl. 2 minutes, maybe. But the vestry was full, Thorn barking tempos, Lydia warming up trills, altos gossiping. Anyone could have slipped in a pinch. Cyanide's quick dissolving, they say. Smells of almonds, too, like marzipan at Christmas. His voice faltered, eyes misting behind lenses. Emily sipped first, always eager. Grimaced a tad. Bit sharp today, Harold. Then smiled and let us out. Miss Marple's eyes roved the loft as her needles began clicking, a soft counterpoint to the organ's hum. She noted a rag draped over the music rack, damp and faintly stained. Leaning closer under pretense of adjusting her spectacles, she inhaled. Almonds, subtle but there, mingling with oil and dust. Sharp indeed. And this rag, yours for cleaning keys? Harold nodded, playing on. Aye, pipes get grimy. Used it yesterday after, well, clearing up. Smells of everything up here, incense, wax, and now... He trailed off, a cord jangling discordantly. She said nothing of the scent, merely smiled. Human nature plays false notes too, doesn't it? Like that argument I overheard last night, from the village hall. Harold's fingers froze mid-arpeggio, the cathedral falling silent save for a distant blackbird's call. Argument? You were at the hall. Passing by, dear, windows open to the air, Mr. Thorne and Miss Beaumont, quite heated. He sighed, pushing back from the console. Rehearsal ran late Saturday, post-tea squabble. Emily stormed out after Thorne's row with her. Lydia cornered him by the hymnals. You resented her more than I. Thorne snapped back. At least I didn't threaten to dismiss her. Voices carried. Whole choir heard. Lydia flounced off. Thorne slammed his baton down. Me? I tidied, pretending not to notice. Miss Marple nodded, pocketing the rag sample in her handkerchief, subtle as a dropped stitch. Dismiss her? Over a solo? Aye. Emily wanted the lark all to herself, no chorus backing. Thorne said it unbalanced the ensemble. She cried, You're jealous of my voice. He replied, Disciplined girl, not diva tantrums. Lydia egged it on, smirking. Petty, all of it. The organ resumed, softer now, as Miss Marple probed gently. Emily's returned letters glimpsed in his cottage window Monday eve. Harold flushed crimson. Jay, just music notes. She sent 'em back. Clutter, she said. Broke my heart a touch, but I understood. Young folk flit like butterflies. Yet you admired deeply, she murmured. Enough to brew her tea special? His head snapped up, pedals slipping into a minor key. Special? No, ma'am. Same for all. Swear it on the psalter. She patted his hand, serene. Of course, dear. Just patterns forming. Now play me something bright. Chase these shadows. As Harold obliged with a lively air on the G string, Miss Marple descended, rag in pocket, mind alight. The loft's chill clung to her cardigan, but the cathedral warmed below. She slipped into a side pew, observing the nave's quiet commerce. Vergers polishing brass, flower ladies arranging chrysanthemums for Emily's memorial. Midday brought her to the village hall, a timbered barn on the green, festooned with bunting from last week's fete. Rehearsal notices plastered the door. Choir practice 7 p.m. sharp. Inside, the air buzzed with trestle tables and the scrape of chairs. The choir assembled early, voices overlapping like a poorly tuned quartet. Miss Marple entered unobtrusively, claiming a corner seat with her knitting. Mr. Thorne stood at the front, baton in hand, mustache bristling as he tuned pitches. Lydia lounged nearby, filing her nails with theatrical sighs. Harold arrived last, lugging music folios, spectacles fogged. "Order!" Thorne barked, rapping the table. "Emily's memory demands our best. No gossip. Sing!" They launched into Jerusalem, voices blending fitfully. But midway, discord erupted. Lydia's soprano wavered. Thorne halted them. "Miss Beaumont, flat as a pancake. Focus!" Lydia tossed her chignon. "Focus? With her ghost hovering?" "I heard moans again last night. Lady Ashvale warning us." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Superstition. You resented her more than I, coveted her solos like a magpie." Lydia sprang up, cheeks flaming. "And you threatened dismissal Tuesday prior. One more tantrum, Emily, and you're out." Everyone heard. Gasps rippled, altos whispered. Harold cleared his throat. Now, let's sing." But Thorne advanced, voice low thunder. "Jealousy drove you, Lydia. Poisoned her cup while Harold turned. I saw you near it." "You lie!" she shrieked, hurling a music stand. It clattered, sheets flying like startled birds. The choir dissolved into chaos, chairs toppling, voices overlapping. Miss Marple sat serene, needles flashing, absorbing every barb. False lead, she thought, but vivid as a tapestry. Motives painted bold, professional pride versus spotlight hunger. Thorne's clenched fists, Lydia's trembling. Lip, grief, or guilt? Reverend Price burst in, summoned by the verger. "Enough! Disgraceful!" He herded them out, apologies tumbling. As dust settled, Miss Marple approached the fallen sheets. One page, the lark ascending, bore a coffee ring. And a faint almond whiff? No, just spilled cordial from Saturday. Yet beneath the stand, a crumpled note. "Thorne, meet Cloister 6 p.m. Urgent. L. Lydia's hand? Misdirection or tryst?" Outside, the green bustled, children kicking footballs, Mrs. Price distributing handbills for the memorial. Langley waved from his shop, face stormy, another loan collector. Miss Marple strolled homeward, basket heavier with clues, rag, note, and the echo of that argument. Afternoon tea awaited, her own, with the vial from yesterday. She uncorked it beside the teapot, comparing scents. Almonds pure, the rag matched. "Patterns emerge," she murmured, knitting a cable stitch, twisted like truths. But whose hand twisted the thread? Dusk fell early, lanterns blooming like fireflies. From her cottage window, she spied figures in the lane. Thorne and Lydia parting stiffly post-rehearsal. Harold trailed, head down. Langley locked his shop, glancing cathedral ward. Chapter 5. The Jealous Rival's Alibi. Wednesday, the 21st of September, 1953, greeted St. Mary Mead with a brisk northerly wind that tugged at chimney pots and scattered golden leaves like confetti from a somber wedding. The village stirred earlier than usual, its cobblestones slick with overnight dew, and the air sharp with the tang of wood smoke and ripening apples from the orchards beyond the churchyard. Ashvale Cathedral loomed against a sky veined with high cirrus clouds, its bells striking 9 with a clarity that pierced the morning hush. The inquest preparations buzzed quietly. Constable Mellors cycled to and fro with official forms. The postmistress sorted letters, stamped condolences, and black crepe fluttered from more doorways. A somber garland for Emily Hargrove. Yet amid the grief, life persisted. The baker's trays steamed with fresh loaves. Children dashed to school with satchels swinging. And Miss Jane Marple, fortified by toast and marmalade, set forth with purpose. Her basket held a thermos of lapsang souchong, smoky for clearing the mind, and a skein of heather wool for a new scarf. But her true quarry was Miss Lydia Beaumont, whose jealous glint and ghostly tales had snagged in Miss Marple's thoughts like a burr on wool. "Alibis," she murmured, locking her cottage gate, "are like patched quilts. Sew them too loosely and the filling shows through." The lane to Lydia's lodgings wound past the duck pond, where mallards quacked indignantly at her reflection, and the Blue Boar, where early patrons nursed mugs and muttered of choir poisonings. Lydia's home was a half-timbered cottage on Willow Lane, its thatch patched from wartime neglect and diamond windows curtained in sprigged muslin. Smoke curled from the chimney, scented with toast and desperation. Miss Marple knocked with her umbrella handle, tap-tap like a polite metronome, and the door flew open to reveal Lydia in a wrapper of faded silk, hair tousled from a hasty brush, green eyes wide as saucers. "Miss Marple, at this hour? Gracious, do come in. I was just practicing scales." She ushered her guest into a parlor cramped with femininity, lace doilies on every surface, a pianoforte piled with sheet music, and a vanity mirror reflecting a face pale as porridge. The air held the faint whiff of lavender talc and yesterday's perfume. Jasmine, cloying. Miss Marple settled on a chintz sofa, unpacking her thermos. "Scales can wait, dear. Tea first. Lapsang, strong as your voice. Now about Saturday morning. Your alibi. A solitary stroll, you said?" Lydia poured with trembling hands, spilling a drop that stained her cuff. "Alibi? Oh, the walk, yes. After Friday's rehearsal, dreadful row with Emily over my alto part. She snatched it for harmony. I needed air, so Saturday at dawn I wandered the river path. Saw nothing, heard only birds. Back by 8 for tea." Her laugh tinkled like cracked china. "Ghosts kept me company. Lady Ashvale moaning from the willows." Miss Marple sipped, eyes twinkling behind spectacles. "Birds and ghosts, a poetic pair. But tell me more of that row. And Emily with Mr. Langley. The night before, you saw them arguing?" Lydia leaned in, voice dropping to a venomous whisper as if sharing tea-shop scandal. "Saw? Stumbled upon them, more like. Friday Eve, post-rehearsal by the weir. Moon full as a harvest lantern. Emily in her best frock, curls loose. Arthur red-faced, waving papers. "That loan's due, Em. £20 now." She tossed her head. "Patience, Arthur. Big news tomorrow. Inheritance from Aunt Hargrove." He grabbed her arm. "Lies! Pay up or else." She wrenched free, laughing. "Or else what? Poison my tea?" They parted furious. I hid in the rushes till gone. Her eyes gleamed, relish sharpening her features. "He has a temper, Miss Marple. Like father after 29 crash. Could have followed her to the vestry." Miss Marple nodded, needles clicking a steady 4 to the bar. "Temper indeed, like a kettle on the boil. And your walk, alone? No witness?" Lydia's gaze flicked to the window, where a neighbor hung washing. Alone as Eve in Eden. But the chemist's boy waved from his bike. "Timmy Price, Vicar's nephew." "A lie?" Miss Marple filed it away, offering a ginger nut from her tin. "Charming. Now your hands. Such elegant fingers for the keys. May I see? Knitting pattern matches a trill, you know." Lydia extended them, palms up, long unmarred nails, polished rose. No residue, no tremor beyond nerves. Clean as a whistle. Yet Miss Marple noted a faint violet ink smudge on her thumb. Blue maiden stationery, like Arthur's note. "Wonderful. Poison stings the skin, they say, but you're spotless." She packed away, rising. "A walk together? Fresh air for your scales." Lydia demurred, then yielded, donning a tweed coat and beret. They stepped into the lane, wind whipping leaves about their ankles. "Arthur's shop next," Miss Marple suggested mildly. "Debts call for investigation." The high street bustled gently, barrow boys crying wares, a motor car puttering past. Langley's Emporium gleamed with promise, windows stacked with bolts of wool, hardware gleaming, vintage bicycle gleaming beside a pre-war Austin. A sign swung, Langley's, "Everything for the home." Inside, the air hummed with oilcloth and optimism, shelves groaning under nails, needles, and notions. Arthur Langley emerged from behind the counter, sleeves rolled, face lighting like a lantern. "Miss Marple? Lydia, didn't expect you, pair. Tea? I've the kettle on." "Tea later, Mr. Langley," Miss Marple replied, browsing teapots. "Receipts first. Emily's loan, £20, marked paid." Arthur's bluff cheer dimmed. He rummaged a ledger thick as a Bible. "Here, IOU dated August 15th. Signed E.H. Violet ink. And look, receipt, Friday last. Paid in full, halfpenny change." He flourished a slip. Received $20 from EHAL, counter-stamped, crisp as new. Miss Marple examined it under the window light. Impeccable. Big news indeed. Inheritance? Arthur shrugged, pocketing the ledger. So she hinted. Aunt Hargrove's will. Rumored pearls in London, but my woes, shops thriving. Sold 3 bikes this week. No motive here. His laugh boomed, yet Miss Marple caught a shadow. Ledgers balanced too neatly, perhaps? Lydia sniffed. "Thriver or not? That temper by the weir—" "Strop!" Arthur barked, then softened. "Business, lass. All's square now." As they exited, bell tinkling, Miss Marple steered Lydia toward the pharmacy, a bow-fronted shop with mortar and pestle sign. "A cordial for your throat, dear?" Inside, the air was cool and chemical. Camphor, iodine, and the faint almond bite of pest control. Mr. Elias Crow, the chemist, peered over half-moons, 60-ish wispy beard, apron-stained. "Ladies, paregoric or rat bait, terrible plague in the churchyard." Miss Marple smiled. "Bait later, but Saturday morn, did you stock cyanide?" Crow nodded briskly. "Always. Pest control, signed register. Sold a tin to— let me check." He flipped his poison book. Sept 18th, 8:15 a.m. Mrs. E. Price, 2 Oz, signature Eleanor Price. Purpose, rats in vicarage. Below L. Beaumont, 1 Oz, purpose, garden pests. Lydia paled, clutching her beret. "Me? Never, I was strolling—" A villager piped up from the queue, Mrs. Gamp, the laundress, basket on hip. "Saw you plain, miss. Saturday 7:30, slipping out Crow's back door, nervous as a cat." "Quick tin, Mr. Crow, no chit-chat," gasps rippled. Lydia sputtered. "Lies, ghost distracted me, I mean—" Miss Marple patted her arm. "Dear, dear, misdirection like a trill gone flat. Garden pests indeed." They escaped into sunlight, Lydia ashen. "Witch! That Gamp, always spying." "Spies see truths," Miss Marple mused, guiding her home. People lie for oddest reasons. Spotlight, say." At the cottage door, Lydia whirled. "Jealous? Me? She stole everything, but poison. I'd not soil my hands." Tears welled. Real this time. Miss Marple nodded. "Of course not. Rest now. Patterns clarify slowly." Alone, she circled to the post office, where Blue Maiden stationery stacked high. Violet ink, Emily shade, Lydia's smudge matches. Afternoon waned. She lunched on cheese and pickles, knitting by the window. The rag from the loft, vial from the leaves, both almond-scented. Lydia's alibi. Shaky as blancmange. Yet hands clean, receipt solid for Arthur. False lead or deeper stitch? Dusk painted the sky plum. Lanterns bloomed. From her garden, she spied Lydia storming to the hall. Rehearsal? No, the vicarage. Arguing with Mrs. Price, voices sharp. "That tin was yours, cover for you." Mrs. Price's reply, "Silence, girl, or Emily's not the only secret." Miss Marple smiled, needles flashing. Inheritance, debts, poisons, threads tangle. But untangle they will. Chapter 6. Hidden Affections Unveiled. Thursday, the 22nd of September, 1953, dawned on St. Mary Mead with a vengeance from the heavens, a squall that lashed the village like an impatient schoolmaster's cane. Rain bucketed from bruised clouds, turning lanes to rivulets and gardens to mud pies, while thunder grumbled like an organ in a minor key. Ashvale Cathedral's spires vanished into the gray, its bells muffled to a mournful toll at 8 sharp. The village burrowed indoors, shutters rattled, teapots steamed, and gossip flowed faster than the gutters. Constable Mellors splashed homeward with sodden notebooks. The inquest delayed by weather and black crape clung damply to doors like wilted violets. Emily Hargrove's memorial service loomed for Saturday, but today secrets stewed in the warmth of hearth and hearthside chats. Miss Jane Marple, undaunted by the deluge, breakfasted on kedgeree and contemplation before donning her stoutest mackintosh and galoshes. Her basket brimmed with oatmeal biscuits, crisp for damp days, and a ball of worsted wool in stormy gray, perfect for unraveling tangles. Harold Finch's rejection by Emily had nagged like a loose thread since the vestry. His tearful admission, the returned letters glimpsed Monday eve through his cottage window. They begged inspection. "Affections," she murmured, umbrella blooming like a black mushroom as she stepped out, "are the warp and weft of motive. Pull too hard and the whole cloth frays." The lane to Harold's abode squelched underfoot, ducks quacking triumph from the pond, and the blue boar sign swung wildly, dripping like a penitent's brow. Harold's cottage crouched at the village edge, a squat, whitewashed affair with a sagging thatch and windows curtained in faded chintz, nestled against the schoolhouse where he taught by day. Smoke puffed defiantly from the chimney, scented with pipe tobacco and baking. Miss Marple rapped the brass knocker, shaped like a treble clef, and the door swung wide to reveal Harold, aproned and flour-dusted, spectacles fogged from the stove's heat. His sandy hair stuck up in spikes, and his mild eyes widened in surprise. Miss Marple, in this downpour? Gracious, come in, quick, I've gingerbread just out. Fortifies against the chill." He bustled her into a parlor as snug as a violin case. Beams blackened by time, a rag rug before the fire, bookshelves groaning with scores from Bach to Brahms, and a pianoforte in the corner bearing a vase of wilted asters. The air hummed with cinnamon and comfort, rain drumming a tattoo on the panes. A desk by the window held stacks of sheet music, and there, in plain sight, a bundle of letters tied with faded ribbon. Their envelopes stamped, "Return to Sender." Miss Marple shed her mac, settling into a rocker with a grateful sigh. Gingerbread and gossip, what finer antidote to weather? "You've a homely touch, Mr. Finch." She unpacked biscuits, offering the tin. "But let's talk affections. Emily's letters. Returned, you said. May I see? Patterns in handwriting, you know, like notes on a staff." Harold flushed to his ears, busying himself with the kettle. Letters? Oh, those. Silly scribbles. Music theory, really. She asked for tips on trills. I obliged. Sent 'em back. Clutter, she wrote on one. He placed a plate of steaming gingerbread before her, but his eyes darted to the desk. With a resigned sigh, he fetched the bundle, untying it with trembling fingers. 5 envelopes, violet ink on the addresses, H.F. Esquerno, schoolhouse. Inside, not theory, but poetry. Harold's hand, flowery as a Victorian Valentine. Your voice, dear Emily, is my Messiah's joy. Miss Marple scanned one, needles clicking softly. Poetry, not scales. Broke my heart, you said Monday. How deeply. Harold sank into the opposite chair, pipe in hand, unlit. Rain lashed harder, thunder rolled. Deep as the cathedral crypt. Took her to the pictures, the Lavender Hill mob laughed till tears. Afterward, tea at Mabel's. Harold, you're a dear, but I'm for dancing, not dozing. Wrote these after, poured my soul. She returned 'em Friday last with a note, sweet but save your ink for hymns. Crushed me, but poison never, I'd compose her an Ave first. Tears welled. He wiped them with the sleeve, gingerbread untouched. Miss Marple patted his knee, voice soft as eiderdown. Unrequited love, the saddest fugue. like Mr. Knightley pining for Emma. Did she laugh off others too? Mr. Thorne, say? Harold nodded, brightening slightly. Aye, Thorne barked. She chirped back. But Mrs. Price saw her arguing with Emily Tuesday prior, from my garden fence. Immoral conduct, Mrs. Price snapped. Flirting ruins girls. Emily, mind your mice, not my morals. Sharp as a quaver. Then Wednesday, Emily confided in me at choir. Eleanor's shed, rat poison everywhere, hypocrite. Miss Marple's needles paused mid-stitch, eyes keen. Rat poison? Cyanide? Prussic acid, she called it. Smells almonds. For the vicarage mice. Harold relit his pipe, puffing clouds like storm signals. The door rattled. A neighbor, Mrs. Tuttle, the postmistress's sister, peering in with a pie dish. Harold, dear, saw Miss Marple. Brought shepherd's pie. Awful weather, mind if I join? She bustled in, plump and rosy, shaking rain from her shawl. Of course, Mrs. Tuttle, Harold beamed. Over pie, she confirmed. Saw that row plain. Mrs. Price red as a beet, Emily storming off. Tuesday tea time, vicarage garden. Eleanor waved a tin. For vermin! But Emily shouted, your secrets are the real rats. Odd that. Miss Marple smiled, filing the thread. Secrets indeed. Thank you, dear. Now, Mr. Finch, your rag from the loft? Almond scent? Harold blinked. Rag? Oh, cleaning cloth. Used for pipes, oil, dust, no poison? She nodded serenely, pocketing a pie crumb for later comparison. Of course, patterns only. As Mrs. Tuttle departed, thunder cracking overhead, Miss Marple rose. Rest, dear. I'll brave the squall to the vicarage. Mrs. Price's shed calls. Harold paled. Careful, ma'am. Eleanor's fierce as a fortissimo. The rain met her like a curtain, umbrella straining as she splashed to the vicarage. Mrs. Price answered, apron soaked from laundry. Miss Marple, drenched, come dry by the fire. Tea? Thomas is at prayers. The kitchen gleamed. Copper pans agleam, dresser stacked with spode, and a Welsh dresser holding mismatched china. Miss Marple noted one cup, delicate floral with EH etched faintly beneath a chip. Identical to Emily's silver, but porcelain. Tea, yes, Earl Grey. And your shed, Mrs. Price? Mice plaguing? Eleanor's lips pursed like dried plums. Vermin everywhere, come see. She led through a side door to the garden shed, a lean-to of warped boards, tools racked, pots stacked. Rain drummed the tin roof. Shelves held seed packets, shears, and 3 tins labeled Rat Be Gone, Prussic Acid, almond whiff strong as marzipan. Miss Marple inhaled delicately. For mice? Potent stuff. Sold Saturday, Mr. Crow said. Eleanor snatched a tin, label peeling. Need it. Vermin in the larder chewed my best jam. Her hands trembled. Not nerves, but haste. Emily argued. Nonsense. Girl was flighty, that's all. And her cup? Miss Marple gestured inside. That floral one. E.H. yours? Eleanor's eyes flashed. Hers. Borrowed for tea. Chipped it last week. Returned Sunday morn. She slammed the shed door, mud splashing her hem. Back in the kitchen, tea poured. Miss Marple probed gently. Immoral conduct. Tuesday's row. Eleanor stiffened, spoon clattering. Overheard? She flirted shameless. Langley, boys at the hall, told her on choirs sacred. She laughed. Sacred as your secrets. Impudent. Her voice cracked. She turned to the sink, shoulders rigid. Miss Marple sipped, noting the chipped cup rinsed hastily. Secrets brew trouble like oversteeped tea. Afternoon waned. Rain eased to drizzle. Miss Marple trekked home. Basket sodden but clues rich. Letters poetic. Row witnessed. Tins almond-scented, cup mismatched. In her parlor, fire roaring, she laid them out. Vial rag tins sample. Swiped subtly. Cup chip. Scents matched. Cyanide pure. Dusk fell plum gray. Lanterns flickered. From her window she spied figures, Lydia to vicarage, umbrella down, emerging tear-streaked. Then Thorne calling on Langley, voices raised. "Your debts, Emily knew." Harold practiced scales, mournful. Mrs. Price locked the shed, glancing guiltily. Miss Marple knitted a fisherman's rib, twisted, resilient. Plot thickens like clotted cream, affections hidden, poisons stored, whose hand poured? Chapter 7, a crucial overheard conversation. Friday, the 23rd of September, 1953, arrived in St. Mary Mead like a hesitant guest. The squall of yesterday yielding to a sky of washed sapphire and air as crisp as fresh laundry. Puddles mirrored the clouds along the lanes, steam rising from cobblestones kissed by the climbing sun, and the village exhaled a collective sigh of relief. Ashvale Cathedral's spires gleamed anew, its bells pealing 9 with renewed vigor for the morrow's memorial service. Black crape still fluttered, but housewives shook out rugs, children splashed in gutters, and the Blue Boar brimmed with early chatter of that poor choir girl and Miss Marple's knitting up a storm. The inquest, postponed again by weather, loomed like a gathering thunderhead, while Constable Mellors pedaled furiously with telegrams from Inspector Craddock in Market Basing. Emily Hargrove's shadow lengthened, but so did the threads of truth in Jane Marple's nimble grasp. She breakfasted leisurely on poached eggs and revelations. Her cottage parlor a command post of clues. The almond-scented vial from the leaves, rag from the loft, swiped tin sample from the shed, chipped EH cup, poetic letters, and Lydia's violet-inked note to Thorne, all arrayed on the oak table like pieces in a complex tapestry. Her knitting lay beside them, a half-formed Aaron's sweater in cream wool, its cable patterns mirroring the twists of motive she now perceived. "Overheard words," she murmured, spearing an egg yolk, "are the dropped stitches that unravel all. Time to listen from the garden." Basket packed with lemon drizzle cake, tart for sharpening wits, and a fresh skein of wool. She donned her tweed and stepped into the back garden as the clock struck 10. Miss Marple's garden was a modest Eden, rose beds pruned to neat quadrants, herb borders fragrant with rosemary and thyme, and a rustic pergola draped in clematis that screened her from the lane beyond. A wicker chair nestled among lavender bushes, perfect for tending weeds, while ears attuned to village murmurs. The hedge to the footpath, ancient yew, thick as a parson's promise, offered cover, its gaps framing the comings and goings of St. Mary Mead. She settled with cake and needles, ostensibly pruning a wayward stem, but her blue eyes fixed on the lane, where it curved toward the cathedral. Raindrops glittered on spiderwebs like diamond clues. A thrush hopped nearby, tilting its head as if in league. The morning unfolded in pastoral rhythm. The postman whistled past on his bicycle, Mrs. Tuttle trundled a basket of laundry, and school children sang Three Blind Mice en route to lessons. But by 11 the air hummed with purpose. First came Mr. Harold Finch, satchel swinging, bound for the schoolhouse, his glance toward the vicarage lingering, mournful as a minuet. Then Lydia Beaumont, beret askew, hurrying to the post office with a parcel wrapped in brown paper. "Inheritance papers," she muttered to herself, voice carrying clear. Miss Marple's needles paused. Emily's big news. Noon brought a lull broken by the vicar's hearty good day as he cycled to parish calls. Mrs. Price followed on foot, basket over arm, face set like Portland stone, off to market perhaps. The lane emptied save for blackbirds quarreling over windfalls. Miss Marple poured tea from her thermos, content in vigil. Patience, she reflected, is the finest bait. Twilight crept early under gathering clouds, the sun dipping to paint the hedge gold. Lanterns bloomed in cottage windows, and the air cooled to carry voices like silk on the breeze. Supper smoke curled, roast beef and Yorkshire puds, mingling with pipe tobacco. At 6:30, as Miss Marple savored her drizzle cake, footsteps crunched. 2 sets, male, purposeful. She froze, needle midair, peering through U-slits. Mr. Reginald Thorne and Mr. Arthur Langley emerged from the cathedral's side path, collars turned against the chill, faces shadowed by fedoras. They paused at the lane's bend, mere 10 yards from her screen, murmuring low. Miss Marple breathed shallow, ears straining like a cat at a mouse hole. The thrush fell silent. Even the wind held its breath. "Knew too much, Arthur," Thorne hissed, voice clipped as his baton. "That diary, forged accounts, every penny." Langley's rumble followed, agitated. "Aye, Reg. Choir funds, my ledgers, £20 was the tip. Emily found the books Tuesday in the vestry desk. Embezzlement," she crowed. "I'll tell the bishop. Blackmail next. Pay me hush money or prison for you both." Thorne's mustache bristled visibly. "We split the take fair, your shop debts, my sister's nursing home. But her? Demanded half the recital proceeds, met her cloister 6 sharp Wednesday. Your note, LB, diverted Lydia. Silence, girl, or poison your precious tea." I bluffed. She laughed. "Try it, old man." Miss Marple's heart ticked faster than her needles. Diary, forged accounts. The violet note from the hall, Lydia's hand planting misdirection. Langley paced, boots grinding gravel. Friday Weir Row. Real fight was over that. Not my loan, her discovery, I grabbed her. "Keep quiet, Em." She wrenched free. "Big news, Bishop gets it all." Then Saturday tea, someone acted. Not me, alibi at the forge, blacksmith. Vouches, you, Reg? Batten down after her storm out? Thorne snorted. "Fool, I tuned hymns in the loft. Harold heard. But that vial by the door, your doing, slipped it post-argument? Never. Ghost tale was cover, Lydia's to haunt us all. Or Eleanor, shed full of poison row over secrets Emily spilled. Niece, illegitimate, vicar's shame." A twig snapped under Thorne's boot. "Hush! Footsteps!" They glanced round, then parted. Thorne to the hall for rehearsal, Langley to his shop. Their voices faded into dusk. Miss Marple sat stone still, cake forgotten, mind a-whirl. Embezzlement. Choir funds siphoned to debts and care. Emily's diary. Key. Not poetry, but proof. The big news. Blackmail threat. Vial planted. Red herring supreme. Dusk deepened to indigo. Lanterns flickered. She rose, basket swinging, and slipped indoors, barring the door. By lamplight, she unpacked her knitting bag, tucked inside, pilfered from Emily's room Monday via Aunt Hargrove's invitation. A slim leather diary, violet-inked entries. Heart-pounding, she opened to Tuesday, vestry desk, funny numbers. Thorne and Langley cooking books. 200 missing, tell Bishop? Or money for Aunt's surgery? Wednesday, cloister meet, Thorne furious. Silence, laughed, big news tomorrow. Friday, Weir with Arthur caught me reading ledger copy, temper. Pay or else? Hush now, recital, solo worth it? Saturday, T-sharp. Poison my tea? Jokes on them. No more. Miss Marple closed it, fingers trembling. Blackmail, motive for all. But diary's tone, romantic fancies woven in. Earlier pages, Harold's poems, sweet but old. Lydia's glares, jealous minx. Thorne's bark, puppy really. Arthur's arms, strong, but debts. A knock, sharp. She hid the diary, open to Mrs. Tuttle, pie in hand. Evening, dear. Overheard aught? Lane busy tonight? Miss Marple smiled serenely. Just birdsong, Mrs. Tuttle. Pie for supper, bless you. Alone again, she confronted Reginald at his lodgings post-rehearsal, a trim bungalow by the green. Rain pattered anew as she knocked. Thorne answered, waistcoat unbuttoned, mustache drooping. Miss Marple, at this hour? Lemon drizzle, Mr. Thorne, and truths. Your cloister meeting, Wednesday 6, Emily's blackmail. He paled, ushering her to the parlor. Sheet music stacks, metronome ticking. How? Eavesdropping? Patterns, dear. Diary confirms, 200 embezzled. Your sister's fees, Arthur's debts. Emily found the ledger. Thorne collapsed into a chair, head in hands. Guilty as charged, minor, ma'am. Choir fates, collections, skimmed for need. Emily burst in Tuesday, thieves. We begged silence, she demanded cut. Wednesday cloister, pleaded, she laughed. Poison my tea then. Bluff turned real. But murder, swear on my baton, no. Vile? Planted after. I saw it Sunday by door. Accuse me, not killer. Miss Marple nodded, offering cake. Minor indeed. But diary, red herring? Her secrets, romantic scribbles, not schemes. Thorne blinked. Romantic, those numbers real. Ledger and vestry safe, check. She rose, serene. Tomorrow at memorial, truth outs. Night deepened. Rain lashed. From her window she spied Lydia slipping Thorne a note, more misdirection. Harold practicing dirge. Langley locking shop, face grim. Mrs. Price had shed, tin glinting. Miss Marple knitted by firelight, diary beside. Overheard, the crucial stitch. Embezzlement, motive shared, alibis hold. Diary, false lead, planted fancies. Killer wove deeper. Chapter 8. Narrowing the Net. Saturday, the 24th of September, 1953, draped St. Mary Mead in solemn velvet, the sky a vast canopy of dove-gray clouds that wept occasional tears upon the thatched roofs and cobblestone lanes. The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and chrysanthemums carried from the churchyard where villagers had toiled since dawn to prepare Emily Hargrove's memorial. Ashvale Cathedral stood as a bastion of solace, its ancient doors flung wide, welcoming a procession that wound from the high street like a river of black crepe and whispered prayers. The inquest, rescheduled for Monday under Inspector Craddock's stern directive, loomed like a judge's gavel, but today belonged to remembrance, and for Miss Jane Marple, to revelation. Her cottage clock had chimed 7 when she rose, fortified by porridge and precision, her mind a loom weaving the week's threads into final pattern. Narrow the net, she murmured, pinning her lace collar, and the fish thrashes true. By 9:30, the cathedral brimmed, pews filled with 200 souls, farmers in ill-fitting suits, housewives dabbing eyes with lace hankies, children hushed by maternal glares. Candles flickered on the altar, casting golden pools upon banks of white lilies and Emily's portrait. Golden curls, dimpled smile framed in silver. Reverend Price, resplendent in surplice, led the choir, diminished now, voices tentative. In the Lord is my shepherd. Mr. Thorne conducted with a trembling baton. Harold Finch's organ swelled mournful. Lydia Beaumont's soprano cracked on the high notes. Arthur Langley sat rigid in the back, fists clenched. Mrs. Price, front pew, lips a thin white line. Miss Marple occupied her usual 4th pew, basket at feet containing the diary, vial, rag, tin sample, and chipped cup, all wrapped in her knitting like contraband wool. Her needles clicked softly through the service, readings from Psalms, eulogies from Aunt Hargrove. My lark, silenced too soon. And a solo from Lydia. I know that my Redeemer liveth, delivered with theatrical tremolo. As the congregation filed to the graveside later, Miss Marple lingered, eyes roving. Thorne's furtive glance at the vestry safe, Langley's sweaty brow, Harold's bowed head, Lydia's dry cheeks, Eleanor's rigid spine. Observations, she thought, are the shears that trim false branches. Post-service tea flowed in the church hall, a timbered barn aglow with lanterns and trestle tables groaning under, sandwiches, Victoria sponge, and urns of Darjeeling. Villagers milled, murmuring of poor Emily and who'd do it. Miss Marple circulated like a benevolent bee, basket swinging, drawing suspects into her orbit one by honeyed word. First, Lydia, perched by the scones, beret askew, shredding a napkin. "Miss Beaumont, dear, a word?" They retreated to a corner, rain pattering the leaded windows. "Your jealousy, real as yesterday's row, but hands?" Miss Marple took Lydia's palms, turning them to the light. Long fingers, rose nails, immaculate, no residue, not even ink smudged today. A drop of iodine from her basket, no stain, no reaction. "Clean as confession, cyanide bites the skin, yours untouched." Lydia blinked, napkin forgotten. "Clean, but the pharmacy tin. Mrs. Gamp lied. Red herring, plump as your solo. Alibi shaky, but hands tell truth. You're cleared, dear, jealous, but no poisoner." Lydia sagged, tears real at last. "Oh, thank heavens, I feared. Go on, find the beast." Emboldened, Miss Marple sought Harold, stacking chairs by the piano, spectacles fogged. "Mr. Finch, your affections, poetic pure. But residue?" She examined his ink-stained hands. Oil smudges from pipes, chalk from school. No chemical burn, no almond whiff beyond the rag, now explained cleaning solvent mimic. "Grief genuine like your Jesu, cleared, dear boy, compose for joy now." Harold beamed through tears, hugging his folios. "Bless you, ma'am. Emily'd want that." Arthur Langley loomed by the door, nursing a cup, face thunderous. "Mr. Langley, debt squared, receipts solid, hands?" Broad palms calloused from shop work, traces of grease, no poison. Iodine test, nil. "Alibi at forge. Blacksmith confirms cleared. Your or else was bluff. Blackmail scared you straight." Arthur deflated, clapping her shoulder. "Right you are, thought I'd swing. Who's left?" Thorne approached, mustache quivering, ledger tucked under arm. "Miss Marple, vestry safe as promised." They slipped to the quiet vestry, rain drumming. He unlocked the oak cabinet. Choir books, pristine, no discrepancies. "See? Emily's forged accounts. Fancy. I skim naught." Miss Marple pored over pages, needles idle. Entries balanced, $200 intact. Diaries numbers fabricated. Romantic scribbles as she'd suspected. "Red herring supreme, Mr. Thorne. Your cloister bluff. Poison her tea," echoed her joke. "Hands?" He extended them, baton calloused, clean. Iodine clear. Cleared. Pride wounded, but innocent. Thorne exhaled, slumping. "God, the guilt. Minor fudging for sister, but murder never." 4 down, net narrowing. Back in the hall, villagers dispersed, rain eased to mist. Mrs. Price bustled cleanup, stacking cups with mechanical precision, the chipped EH among them. Miss Marple cornered her by the sink. "Mrs. Price, a final tea? Vestry private." Eleanor's gray eyes flashed defiance, but she followed, wiping suds from hands. The vestry fire crackled. Miss Marple poured from the urn, offering seed cake. "Your disapproval deep as roots. Emily's immoral conduct. Flirtations? Or deeper?" Eleanor sat rigidly, cup untasted. "Flirtations enough. Langley boys, ruin waiting. And Tuesday's row shed poison tins, witnessed." Miss Marple unpacked her clues, laying them on the table. Vial, rag, tin sample, all almond matched. "Cyanide from your stock. Chipped cup, yours. Switched Sunday morn for Emily's silver. Hands?" Eleanor extended them reluctantly. Prim, steady, but faint yellow residue under nails, invisible till iodine bloomed purple-black. Eleanor gasped, snatching back. "What?" "Residue lingers, dear, like guilt. Bought Saturday, not for mice, for Emily." Eleanor's facade crumbled. She gripped the table. "How?" Miss Marple's voice softened, relentless. "Patterns. Emily wasn't flirt. Your niece illegitimate from your youth. War hid it. She discovered via letters in Aunt Hargrove's attic. Tuesday row, Auntie, my inheritance, your hidden wealth, church donations siphoned for my keep. Not vicar's shame, yours." She threatened exposure. "Bishop, village, all know." Blackmail for surgery funds. Eleanor sobbed, face crumpling. True, 16, seduced by Milhand, gone to sea. Emily born, I gave her up. Thomas never knew. Adopted orphan. But Will, my fortune to her blood kin. She found papers, 500 saved from collections, my tithes. Demanded it all, and pay or tell Thomas. Wednesday. Big news, my mother, I begged. She laughed. Friday we're not debts, exposure row with Langley, your accomplice? No. Saturday tea. You switched cups while Harold turned. Knew her habit. Poison from shed, vial discarded hasty. Ghost tale? Lydia's diversion, but you spread it. Diary? Planted romantic fancies to mock her secrets. Embezzlement? Your forgery to frame Thorne, Eleanor wailed, collapsing. Yes, switched at dawn, silver to my china, poison in hers. Abide with me, her last. Ruined us, Thomas'd leave, inheritance mine, hidden in garden chest. Miss Marple rang the bell. Constable Mellors burst in, notebook ready. Mrs. Price, arrest, confession witnessed. Eleanor rose, handcuffs glinting, eyes hollow. Mercy, for Thomas? Vicar will understand human nature. As Mellors led her out, Reverend Price entered, face ashen. Jane? Eleanor? Truth, dear Vicar, tea tomorrow, explain all. Hall emptied, rain ceased. Miss Marple walked home, basket lightened, net secured. Dusk gilded the lanes, villagers nodded reverence. Harold waved scores, Lydia smiled free. Thorne bowed, Langley grinned relief. In her parlor, fire roaring, she knitted the final row, errand complete. Narrowed indeed, motives trimmed, jealousy faded, love healed, debts paid, pride mended, only family secret poisoned the well. Chapter 9. The Revelation in the Cathedral. Sunday, the 25th of September, 1953, blessed St. Mary Mead with a sky of unblemished azure, the first true gleam of autumn's gold after days of storm and sorrow. The village stirred at dawn, as if the heavens themselves decreed renewal. Cocks crowed from farmyard perches, milk bottles clinked on doorsteps, and housewives flung open shutters to air the grief of the week. Ashvale Cathedral stood radiant, its limestone facade bathed in honeyed light, stained glass saints winking approval through ruby and sapphire panes. The bells pealed 10 with jubilant clarity, no mournful toll but a call to justice and closure. Word had spread like wildfire through the hedgerows. Mrs. Eleanor Price, arrested at dusk yesterday, confessed under Inspector Craddock's watchful eye. Whispers flew, "The vicar's wife, poison for her own kin." Yet the congregation converged not in outrage but awe at the unraveling. Emily Hargrove's murder, that jagged tear in their tapestry, would be mended today, before the altar where her voice had last soared. Miss Jane Marple had risen with the sun, breakfasting on buttered crumpets in certainty. Her parlor table, once cluttered with clues, now held only the completed errand sweater. Cream wool cables symbolizing twisted secrets made straight. Basket packed with Darjeeling, seed cake, and her knitting for final stitches, she donned her best lace-trimmed hat and walked the high street, nodding to villagers who parted like the Red Sea. "Morning, Miss Marple, God bless your wits," called Mrs. Tuttle from the post office. Harold Finch waved scores from his bicycle. Lydia Beaumont curtsied with genuine smile. Arthur Langley tipped his hat, ledger balanced at last. Even Reginald Thorne bowed, mustache jaunty. Reverend Price, face drawn but dignified, awaited at the lich gate. "Jane, you miracle worker, the vestry, 10 sharp?" "Precisely, Vicar, all threads gathered." She squeezed his arm, eyes kind. "Human nature, dear, forgivable, once seen." By 10 the vestry brimmed, a sanctum of oak panels and incense, fire crackling against the morning chill. Refectory table set with tea things like a peace treaty. Sunlight slanted through mullioned windows, gilding hymnals and the silver teapot. Gathered were the cleared suspects: Lydia, Harold, Arthur, Reginald, plus Reverend Price, pale but resolute, and the newly arrived Inspector Craddock, a burly man of 50 with walrus mustache and notebook, fresh from market basing. Constable Mellors hovered by the door, helmet polished to a gleam. No Eleanor, confined to cells, but her confession transcript lay sealed on the table. The air hummed with anticipation, thick as pre-storm ozone, yet warmed by the tea's steam. Miss Marple entered last, basket swinging, serene as a dowager queen. "Good morning, all. Tea first, clarifies the mind." She poured with maternal precision. Strong for Craddock, milky for Harold, lemon for Lydia. Seed cake circulated, needles clicked once, setting rhythm. The group settled, pews of chairs around the table, eyes fixed on her like choir on conductor. "Inspector," she began mildly, sipping, "you've Eleanor's words, but patterns demand full weave." Emily's poison, cyanide in her silver cup, sipped pre-abide with me. Swift, intimate, knew her EH initials ritual. Vial discarded by choir door, hasty, almond-scented. She unpacked the vial, glinting wickedly. Gasps rippled, Craddock nodded. "Residue matched," he grunted. "Chemist's tin, hers." "Precisely, but motives. Let us trim." Needles flashed to Lydia. "Jealousy, real, sharp as your trills. Stole your spotlight, you bought cyanide Saturday for garden pests, alibi walk. Yet hands clean, no residue." She took Lydia's palms, iodine drop, blooming clear. "Red herring, dear, cleared." Lydia exhaled, tears glistening. "Oh, the relief, I feared madness." To Harold, affections deep, poetic. Letters appeared, violet inked. Returned, heartbroken, rag in loft, solvent, not poison, hands clean. Iodine, nil. Grief pure, cleared. Harold beamed, spectacles misting. "Bless you, I'll compose her lark eternal." Arthur, "Debts temper by weir." Receipt flourished. "Loan repaid, or else bluff over discovery, not murder. Forge alibi solid, hands clean." Test clear. Cleared. Langley clapped her back. "Knew it! Straight as my ledgers now." Reginald, pride wounded, cloister bluff, poison her tea. Diary's embezzlement, forgery. Ledger opened, balance is perfect. Minor fudges for sister, confessed, but no blood. Hands clean. Iodine, gone. Cleared. Thorne straightened, grateful. "My baton sings true again." Reverend Price leaned forward, voice breaking. "And Eleanor, my Eleanor." Miss Marple paused, dramatic, needles still. Sunbeams danced dust motes like confetti. "Vicar, your wife, deepest roots." Emily, "Not orphan, but niece. Your illegitimate daughter from youth. Mill hand, gone to sea. War hit it. You wed, believing her adopted. Eleanor saved tithes, 500 hidden in garden chest for Emily's inheritance, blood right." Gasps chorused. Price paled, clutching the table. "My daughter? God." Emily found papers. Attic letters, will. Tuesday row, shed. "Auntie, my fortune, exposure or bishop knows." Blackmail for aunt's surgery. Wednesday cloister, Thorne diverted, she laughed your bluff. Friday weir, not debts. Langley learned secret, argued containment. Saturday dawn, Eleanor switched cups, her chipped EH porcelain for Emily's silver, poison poured. New habit, discarded vial, hasty. Transcript unsealed. Craddock read Eleanor's words. "She'd ruin Thomas, my shame. Demanded all, I begged. Poison, quiet end." Cup switched at vestry door, pre-service. "Abide with me," her last note. Chest key and Bible. "Take for church." Price wept openly. "My child murdered by her mother?" Miss Marple rose, voice velvet steel. "Not malice, fear, human nature, secrets fester like damp wool." Eleanor spread ghost tale, Lydia's seed for diversion. planted diary fancies, romantic scribbles, forged embezzlement to frame thorn, misdirection masterstroke. Dramatic pause, thunderous silence, save fires pop. Craddock closed the transcript. Case closed. Murder by poisoning, premeditated. Mrs. Price, life sentence, mercy plea, vicar. Price nodded, broken. Visit her. Explain. Lydia sobbed. Harold comforted. Arthur gripped Thorne's shoulder. Unity bloomed, choir reborn. Miss Marple packed clues, smiling. Justice, dears, like knitting. One stitch heals all. Tea tomorrow, resolution. The group rose, embracing her. Craddock saluted. Miss Marple, you're a national treasure. Mellors beamed. Outside congregation awaited post-service, buzzing. Price mounted pulpit. Beloved's truth revealed. Eleanor confesses, Emily our kin, pray for mercy. Cheers mixed tears, bells pealed triumph. Miss Marple slipped to churchyard, ewes whispering approval. Gravestone fresh. Emily Hargrove, beloved lark, 1933-1953. Abide with me. Harold approached, score in hand. New anthem, for her. Lydia. I'll sing second, no more envy. Arthur and Thorne. Fun straight, recital for aunt's surgery. Price. Jane. Thank you. She patted his cheek. Go to her, dear. Patterns mend. Sun crested, rainbows arced. Village healed, choir voices rising in impromptu Jerusalem. Miss Marple walked home, basket light, sweater complete. In her garden, lavender nodded. Revelation indeed, poison stemmed, harmony restored. Chapter 10. Tea and Tranquility Restored. Monday, the 26th of September, 1953, unfurled upon St. Mary Mead like the first page of a well-loved book, crisp, promising, and free of yesterday's shadows. The sky arched wide and cornflower blue, unmarred by the week's tempests, while a playful breeze danced through the hedgerows, scattering golden leaves like confetti from a long-awaited wedding. Ashvale Cathedral's spires caught the rising sun, transforming from somber sentinels to joyful beacons, their bells pealing eight with a merry lilt that echoed across the thatched rooftops and dew-kissed meadows. The village exhaled fully at last. Milk floats rattled merrily, the baker's trays steamed with fresh currant buns, children dashed to school with laughter unbound, and housewives flung open casements to air the last traces of black crepe. Emily Hargrove's gravestone, fresh hewn in the churchyard, already sprouted violets from its base, a tender promise of renewal. Constable Mellors pedaled triumphantly to Market Basing with his signed confession, while Inspector Craddock wired commendations. Whispers of Miss Marple's miracle fluttered from garden fence to tea shop, binding the community closer than ever in grateful awe. In her cottage at the lane's end, Miss Jane Marple had risen with the dawn chorus, her 72 years feeling lighter than spring lamb's wool. She breakfasted leisurely on poached eggs, toast fingers, and strawberry preserve from her own garden. Sweetness to cap the bitter truths unearthed. Her parlor gleamed with order restored, the oak table cleared of clues, now dressed for tea with her best lace cloth, silver service, polished to mirror shine, and a tiered stand groaning under scones, fresh baked with sultanas, cucumber sandwiches, crusts trimmed neat, lemon drizzle cake, tart as revelation, and jam pennies, Emily's favorite in her honor. The Aran sweater, cables complete, lay folded on the settle, a gift for the vicar, symbol of secrets straightened. Her knitting needles rested idle beside a final skein of heather wool, for today called not for unraveling but weaving anew. Tranquility, she murmured, arranging chrysanthemums in a spode vase, is the finest pattern of all, like tea after storm. By 9:30, the kettle sang on the hob, and the air brimmed with Darjeeling's amber perfume, mingling with wood smoke from the grate and lavender from the garden border. Miss Marple donned her lace-trimmed apron, pinned her white curls just so, and stepped to the door as footsteps crunched the gravel path. Reverend Thomas Price arrived first, bicycle propped against the apple tree, his broad face softened by sorrows passing into quiet resolve. Behind him trailed the choir's heart. Mr. Reginald Thorne, waistcoat crisp and mustache jaunty. Miss Lydia Beaumont, chignon perfect, eyes bright without envy. Mr. Harold Finch, satchel of scores swinging, spectacles agleam. And Mr. Arthur Langley, ledger tucked under arm, ruddy cheeks wreathed in relieved smiles. No Eleanor, bound for trial with mercy, pleaded, but her absence wove the final thread of healing. "Dear friends," Miss Marple welcomed them with open arms, ushering into the parlor's cozy embrace. Sunlight slanted through diamond panes, gilding the chintz cushions and turkey rug, while the fire popped cheerful accompaniment. "Tea awaits. Strong as truth, sweet as forgiveness. Sit, sit. Scones first to fortify." They settled around the table like family at Yuletide, Price at her right, Thorne opposite, Lydia and Harold flanking, Langley at the end. Teacups clinked like resolved chords. Milk splashed, sugar tongs clicked. Miss Marple poured with maternal grace, milky for the vicar, lemon for Lydia, her blue eyes twinkling behind spectacles. "To Emily," she toasted softly, raising her cup. Her lark's song echoes eternal. "To Emily," they chorused, voices harmonizing true. Sighs mingled with steam, scones crumbled golden, jam glistening ruby. Reverend Price set down his cup, hands steady now. "Jane, you saw what we missed. Eleanor, my wife, Emily's mother. Visited her dawn, cell stark but eyes clear. Thomas, forgive, fear blinded me. Fortune to church, love you both. Signed papers, $500 for Aunt Hargrove's surgery, rest to choir fund. Trial Tuesday, life but mercy for age." His voice thickened, yet smiled. "Our daughter, buried with honor. Abide with me indeed." Miss Marple patted his hand, needles resuming a gentle click, final border on a doily. "Human nature, dear vicar. Secrets fester like damp, sunlight heals. You saw none. Trusted as husbands should." Thorne cleared his throat, mustache twitching gratitude. "My fudges, sister's home paid honest now. Emily's diary, Eleanor's plant, romantic twaddle to mock her threats. Ledger clean as my baton." He flourished a program. Autumn recital, the lark ascending, in memory of E.H., next Sunday, full choir, her solo restored. Lydia leads. Lydia beamed, no glint of green. Second voice now, harmony sweeter shared. Ghost tale, my folly, spread for shivers. Hands clean, heart too. Emily'd laugh. "Spotlight for all, dear." Harold unfolded scores, eyes shining. New anthem, Emily's lark, soprano soars, organ cradles. Her letters framed in school. Poetry inspires, affections healed into music. He hummed a bar, pure, piercing. "You cleared us, ma'am." Like fugue resolved. Langley boomed, ledger open, balances black ink. "Debt's dust, receipt true. Emily's big news, her claim on fortune. Weir row, panic over secret, not temper. Forge alibi held, hands grease, not poison. Recital sponsors, bikes raffle for aunt." Laughter rippled, warm as cream. Miss Marple nodded, slicing cake. Patterns indeed, jealousy weeded, love composed, debts balanced, pride conducted. Eleanor, fear for family, universal sin. Cleared you all. Iodine proved, alibis wove, vile hers, hasty discarded. The vicar leaned forward, reverent. "How, Jane? From knitting?" She smiled, modest. "Just human nature, dears, same in cathedral or cottage. Village like doily, pull one thread, pattern shows. Emily's sip, intimate knowledge. Residue, lingerer. Diary fancies, too neat romance amid threats. Overheard whispers, embezzlement, bluff. Hands tested, 4 clean, 1 stained. Cup switched, dawn Sunday, vestry shadow. Inheritance papers, attic find, Tuesday spark. Awe hushed them, Harold scribbled notes, Marple method. Genius. Nonsense. Observation like dropped stitch, overlook, sweater unravels, spot, mend, neat. She passed the Aaron sweater. For you, Vicar, cables straight. Wear Sundays, remember. Price donned it, perfect fit. Warm as grace, bless you. Tea flowed. Sandwiches vanished. Outside, village bustled. Mrs. Tuttle waved pies, children sang Jerusalem, blackbirds hopped ewes. Lydia confided, new solo, Emily's trills. Thorne tapped rhythm. Harold played pianoforte impromptu, larks soaring. Langley tallied raffle. Price planned sermons, forgiveness forged. Midday sun crested, cups emptied. Miss Marple rose serene. Tranquility restored, like tea, brew strong, sip slow, share warm. Choir rises tomorrow, village whole. They embraced her, family now. Price. Sermon quote. Miss Marple saw stitches divine. Laughter, door chimes. As they departed, bicycle bells, laughter trailing, Miss Marple cleared table, humming, Abide with me. Garden called, roses pruned, herbs snipped. Afternoon waned golden, church bells tolled noon joyous peal. From her window she spied, choir processing cathedral, robes flowing, voices united. Thorne's baton flashed, Lydia led true, Harold's organ swelled, Langley waved from shop, Price in pulpit, sweater proud. Evening crept rose-pink, lanterns bloomed. Miss Marple knitted by fire, new shawl, simple lace. People much the same, she murmured, one stitch at a time. The village returned to peace, cottages aglow, bells fading, stars pricking velvet sky. Emily's lark sang on, in harmony eternal.